Welcome to the first creative video of the Fantasy Creature Contest. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I refer you to the rules video that can be found in the description or as part of the same playlist as this video. Otherwise, let's continue. Granted that there is no right way to create a fantasy creature concept, I will list some tips and ideas that I found interesting, and if you want to go deeper, I refer you to the playlist in the series How to Create Fantasy and Alien Races on my Italian channel. Find the link in the description. I will probably translate it and post it on this channel too in the future, so stay tuned and subscribe. What do I mean by a concept of a creature? Well, I mean a general description formulated in a single sentence that gives an idea of its main characteristics. You can start with anything, an idea of how it looks like, the ability you want it to have, or cultural customs, either specific or vague. For example, in the first video of the series on how to create fantasy and alien creatures, I suggested 4 starting concepts and I formulated them this way. Narrati, noble elves who build magical towers to channel the power of the moon. Turk, savage lizard warriors who carve rune into the trees to feed on the set. Chimerids, aliens who can live without food or water thanks to cybernetic transplants. Vixids, hive-minded insectoids whose whips are used to extract a fragrant essence that creates the finest scents in the galaxy. As you can see, you don't need any special enlightenment to get started, just pick a few elements that tickle your fancy, and then move on to thinking in terms of biological pressures and cultural influences, which we'll discuss in future videos. In any case, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of things that might be useful for finding insights. Universal pressures are environmental pressures on a cosmological level from which your creature cannot escape. Although they are great for giving the story an original starting point, you should not always use them, because they are so overwhelming that may sometimes cage your fantasy. The most important thing for your world to be realistic is internal consistency, and creatures makes no exception. However, they do not always need to be described in great details, as mystery, wonder or horror can be more immersive. The place where a species is born and lives goes a long way in guiding its development, both biologically and culturally. Local weather, hazards, and resource availability determine what your creature can or cannot do. Remember that while it is difficult to create truly new creatures this day, you can start with a classic stereotypes and modify them until you give them a dimension that is entirely your own and personal. Even if you start with the classic elves and dwarves, you can give them a whole new flavor by playing with the history and culture of such races. Remember, your uniqueness is in you, so even if you take the most stupid stereotype and adapt it to your own tastes and to your own vision, you are still creating something different and special that can evolve into completely new and interesting creatures as this video progresses. Starting from that early concept to create a final concept, try to add a few sentences of description to your creature. For example, by the end of the first video in the series on how to create fantasy and alien races, the example creatures has become like this. Narrati, noble elves who build magical towers to channel the power of the moon. In ancient times, they may have begun to build tall towers to rise above the canopy of trees to harness the moon's rays. Now that they live on the plains and deforestation has reduced the amount of green space, they would no longer need them, but it has become so integrated in their culture that they continue to build them. From a necessity, they have become a status symbol. Turk, wild lizard warriors who carve runes into trees to feed on the set. They may consider the trees from which they draw nectar sacred and only consume it before battles, as it gives a great strength, which is also why they consider them sacred in the first place. The reason they carve runes is to promote healing. In fact, they have developed a cult of the trees. Chimerids, aliens who can live without food or water thanks to cybernetic transplants. They have been forced to implant solar panels in their back to cope with a famine that has hit their part of the galaxy, battering their humanity to survival. The famine may be over now, and the new generations may be the first to live without the transplants, returning to their galaxy of origin and rediscovering the typical cuisine of their ancestors. Vixids, hive-minded insectoids from which an odoriferous essence is extracted by whipping them to create the best scents in the galaxy. They may have developed a hive mind because it provides great benefits, but despite this, they do not possess a superior intellect. They may secrete the odoriferous substance because of a component of their diet that only they can metabolize. No way to synthesize it in laboratory has yet been found, and they may be on the verge of extinction because of intense hunting by poachers. Now it's your turn! To participate in the contest, create an initial one-sentence concept, then enrich it with 2 more sentences as in the examples I gave, and post it in the comments with the name of your creature in all caps. And mind you, you do not have to limit yourself to one, you can create as many concepts as you want, just make sure to use a different comment for each creature, so that if someone else or myself want to add something in the comment, we won't be confused to which creature we are referring to. Have fun!